Hey guys, okay, this video goes with FDR and his critics, and it's talking about what FDR does in response to the criticisms that he got. And this is kind of crazy, but there's no handout. You have to make your own handout on a piece of notebook paper. Oh my gosh. I can show you what the hardships, I tell you. It looks like this, what you're trying to create here, so I'll put it up there for a minute so you can see. So it says here, FDR's responses to his critics. And we're going to have this over here, which is he created alternatives, which he created this, he met the goal, they got to the same end, but he went there in a different way, a different means. So we're going to talk about that first, okay? So you might want to pause for a second and draw this out on your paper, and then start back when you're all set up, okay? But I'm going to press forward and not put that wait time on the video. So some things that FDR did to achieve the same goals. One thing is he created the new AAA, which includes what we call price supports in agriculture. And from 1930 here to, well, this is later after the AAA, so 1937 I think it is, until just pretty recently, and to some degree even today, the government was supporting farmers, and prices were artificially low as a result of these price supports. So let's talk about how it works. Now, the farmers do not destroy their crops. That was the thing that the Supreme Court and the American people were the most upset about, is that we were destroying food. So the idea is, don't destroy the food. Instead, you're going to put the food in storage, okay? Now, this gets at the whole idea of, well, gosh, how do you store food endlessly until you need it, or until the prices go up? Well, one way you can do it is you can store milk, and it becomes cheese. Cheese. That's good. And also milk turns into yogurt. Milk can turn into a lot of interesting things if you leave it alone long enough. So, that was one thing you could do. You might have actually heard before of something called government cheese. The idea that the government at times used to give out welfare checks and a block of cheese. Might be related to this. In fact, I think it is, where the government has subsidized milk production in America and stored a whole lot of milk for a long period of time. That turned into cheese. Also why, watch me choke on this cheese. Also why like the school lunch program is so cheap in public schools, because sometimes the government has a lot of this extra food that they have in storage, and they just want to get rid of it. So another thing you can do is take an apple crop. How are you going to store apples, right? They get kind of gross. Applesauce, apple concentrate, apple juice, okay? There's lots of creative ways to take farm products and store them in such a way that they can be used later when prices go up, okay? So you store the food in the silos or in frozen form or concentrate form or whatever, and you loan farmers the money that their crops will get one day when prices go up. But you leave the actual crops in storage until prices go up. And then when prices go up, that's called parity. When prices reach parity, then the government sells the crops that are in storage. They give the money to the farmers, and the farmers then pay their debts. So it's kind of brilliant. It's a way to help make sure prices on farm goods don't go too low, but at the same time make sure that farmers have the money they need to go on living, even though they haven't been able to sell their crops. Also, we're going to replace the NRA with the NLRB and the FLSA. And we're going to be talking about that more in class because it's a little bit confusing. So right now you just need to know that the National Recovery Act, or the National Recovery Administration, is going to be replaced by, because remember the Supreme Court found them unconstitutional? It's going to be replaced by the National Labor Relations Board and the Fair Labor Standards Act. And we'll talk about that more in class. Okay? So that's the way he kind of replaced the AAA and the NRA. That's how he replaces them. The next thing he starts doing is he starts thinking a little longer term about what the real problem seems to be is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court does not seem to be particularly favorable towards the president and his programs, and that's why he declared those other two unconstitutional. So FDR comes up with a much more interesting proposal about how to solve this problem long term. And he starts making a claim that the Supreme Court judges are too busy, and they're too old, and that what they really need is some help. And that we should grow the Supreme Court and make it larger. And we should add, instead of 9 justices, we should add 6 more, and then we'll have 15. And interestingly enough, you know who appoints the new judges? Why, the president does. So this would allow FDR to basically grow the Supreme Court and create a court that was more friendly towards his philosophy of government and his programs. This is a really startling proposal. It's basically an example of the president trying to take over a branch of government in a semi-constitutional means. Well, particularly if he gets the law passed through Congress or amends the Constitution, that would be great. But this is just a really radical proposal. He already has pretty much control of Congress because they're from his party, and now he's trying to get control of the Supreme Court. Well, Congress thinks this smells up to high heaven. They do not pass it. They think that this is a threat to checks and balances and that the president is trying to consolidate power. And it's just kind of a stunning failure, but definitely strikes a sour tone with America and with Congress. And it's probably the biggest embarrassment of the Roosevelt administration. He just really loses a lot of the people's confidence through this maneuver. And it's really the low point of his presidency. And in some ways, he's lucky World War II came along because people's willingness to re-elect him after this might have been waning had it not been for the coming war in the background. So we'll be looking at this cartoon as an example of that in class. Okay, so FDR very creative in dealing with his critics and figuring out how to recreate programs that had been found unconstitutional, but then a disturbing example of him trying to control the courts and make sure that they do not threaten his programs further. It's also worth noting that it's the 1930s, and in other parts of the globe there are people taking dictatorial power through a constitutional process. Like Hitler in Germany, he was given power by the German Congress. Okay, he came to power totally legally. And so, in a way, we're just really fortunate that our Congress had the foresight to not pass this court-packing proposal and instead maintain the system of checks and balances that are really the key to our democratic process. So, there were other people so desperate around the world that they basically gave up the checks and balances, and we see how that resulted in Germany. So, lucky for us in America, we dodged that bullet. All right, see you in class. Thanks for watching. Bye.